Hello, good afternoon, everyone. So let's move forward to today's session. So, are you excited to start today's session? Today, we will discuss mostly about the front-end frameworks, like not front-end framework. I would say the EY frameworks like the Bootstrap, the Material EY, and the what to say the REST API. Okay. So I will talk about REST API today. So what is REST API and what are the guidelines that you should follow? What qualifies API to be a RESTful API? Okay, so I will talk about that. So today I will give a brief introduction about Bootstrap. So I will talk about two things. One is Bootstrap, another is a material design. Okay, a material design and material what are the libraries around that is present. So anyone has any idea what is Bootstrap? So anything brief, what it does, or how it can be beneficial to all of us. So today I will talk about Bootstrap. So what is Bootstrap? Uh, if you have an idea, then it is fine. But Bootstrap is a CSS, or you can say CSS plus JS library, which gives some ready-made features which you can add to your project. Say you have a dialogue on your application. Say in your resume you have a title bar or a nav bar, or there is an image slider. So for that, Bootstrap has some built-in components. So they would, in their example, they would give some sort of HTML code, and they have already defined some CSS classes in their library. So if you use this specific HTML with those classes, okay, so then you will get ready-made UI within seconds. So you don't have to write your custom CSS for that. Okay, so let me take all of you to Bootstrap website. So just confirm me once if you can see their. Just a minute. Can you see the screen? Is the Bootstrap website is coming to all of you? Yes. Okay. So then, what does Bootstrap means? Bootstrap stands for it is a fast library, okay, that helps you to create responsive websites. Okay, so the installation part is pretty simple. So there is a CSS, there is a link which you can add for CSS and JS. Okay, so they have a whole lot of icons that you can use in your project. Okay, so just let me take you through the documentation, what kind of components they have. Okay, so how to add Bootstrap, they have given a proper documentation for that. I'm not going through that one right now. Okay, so what I will go through is layouts. Okay, so here you can see the grid system. Okay, grid system is something which I have talked earlier. So how you can how you can divide your screen in 12 different columns, and then you can organize the content using those columns. Those columns are called grids. Okay, so Bootstrap, they have already written the CSS for this grid system. So like for this, take this example. To design this div, they have given this HTML structure. So there is a div. So that is the first, they are calling it as a container. So inside container they have a row. Okay, and this every column is represented like that. So div column, div class column, and div class column. So there they have three column, and check those three columns are taking equal width. Okay, so if you want this similar experience using the raw CSS or raw HTML, then you have to write a lot of CSS for to get this behavior, to get the exact UI. But Bootstrap is giving those things out of the box. Okay, so there are different options. So they already handle different type of screen sizes, like extra small screen sizes. So for the screen sizes whose width is less than 576 pixel, then there is a small device, okay, whose width is more than 576 pixel but less than 786. So there are different screen sizes, like XS, one is extra small, then there is a small screen size, then there is a medium screen size, large screen size, XL means extra large and extra large. So these are the different screen sizes that they have given, and you can add these class names to make your website or whatever component you are designing in your web page to make them responsive. Okay, so let me take to another example. Hmm, yes, So this example, in this example, let's say, if I would go to say LinkedIn, so you can see in this section there are three columns. You can see on the left hand side there is a column, and on the middle part there is another column, and on the right hand side there is another column. So how you would give different width to different columns? So Bootstrap has ready-made classes for that. Say inside one row. So for take this section for example. Okay, so say this one is a row. This complete UI is a row, and I want to divide this specific part into 8 columns. So that's why they have given it, right. So call 8 means this row will consume or will take 8 columns. Okay, and this part will take 4 columns. So they have defined some certain class names like say call 8, call 4, call 1, 2, 3, 4, something like that. They have already defined those class names in their library, whatever this in their CSS library. Okay, so this is how this you can these helper classes are very easy to use, and this gives the UI out of the box which is responsive. Okay, so there are a lot of other examples which you have to review. You have to go through it one by one. Okay, and then I will go to the content. Okay, so say this for content, say for table. Okay, for table, say you want a table like this which would look like this, but for that you have to write a lot of custom cases, right? Like a normal default HTML table looks very terrible. Am I correct? The HTML table, the by default ones, looks very terrible, a very squeezed version. Yes. So see how Bootstrap makes the whole thing so simple. You just add a table and give a class name, say class table, a CSS class name, and instantly your table would look like this. Isn't it amazing, guys? If it is amazing, then type amazing or exciting. Okay. So if you have handwritten your CSS for the resume, then this is the go-to option. Then you can download Bootstrap to your project, add Bootstrap to your project, and then use those CSS classes, and you will get this UI instantly. All right. So let's take another example. Yes. So am I audible, guys? No, I just muted myself for a time being. Okay, great. Now let's say if you want to give one specific row some different color. Say you can see there are different colors, like this one is in blue, this one is in gray, this one is in light green, light red, light yellow, light blue. Okay, so that you can do using this class name, say table primary, table secondary, table success. So if you give this thing, if you give this specific class name, instantly your whole table will take this color. This background color will get applied to your table. Okay, so it is so simple. So they have written all of the different CSS classes for that, and you can use those CSS classes and get this UI instantly. Right, so there you can see if you add another class names like table hover, you will get this kind of effect. So once you hover this mouse over this item, this row, it will highlight. So it means you are hovering, you are taking the mouse to those rows. Okay, so like that you will get form UIs instantly. So form is another thing whose UIs normally, if we do normal CSS, that UI does not look good, right? So here Bootstrap comes with the form out of the box. Means see how beautiful these forms looks rather than the default HTML forms. In default HTML, you will get the input fields this much small, I guess. Okay, so if you use their class names, whatever the names they have, class names they have given, if you use those things, then you will get this kind of UI within seconds. You just have to follow the HTML, the structure that you have given, the skeleton you have to follow, and then for the skin, you just have to apply the class names. Like for to get an input like this one, say this rounded corner, beautiful text box, you just have to add this class name called form control. If you add this class name to your input field, then you will get this kind of UI instantly. Same thing goes for the checkboxes, beautiful looking checkboxes. And what are the other things that are available? So there are beautiful looking drop downs, right? Drop downs also look pathetic in normal HTML. So you can also give a good look to it. Okay, so there are different size options are available. Okay, so there are a lot to explore here. Same thing goes for the radio options, radio buttons. So default checkboxes and the radio options. Yes, the radio inputs. Okay, the UI looks very good. If you have a range slider, you can add, you can interact with that, you can use it in your project. Okay, and then if you want to add this kind of floating level, this with animation, okay, so just add form floating to it, you will get the same kind of experience. So like that, what I'm saying means the whole thing becomes different within few seconds if you apply Bootstrap to your project. Okay, so what are the other components available here? Like say accordion. Accordion is a component. Like say you have seen this kind of UI, right? Where you collapsible items you see in many websites. Like some websites do have FAQ, means frequently asked questions. So normally their questions they list here, and if you expand that, you will get the answer here, right? So this kind of UI you can use, you can define. Then you can have buttons. So they have different colorful buttons. You just add these class names, your buttons are designed out of the box. So all kind of UX is also there, like on click what would be the background color, what would be the border color. Okay, so everything is defined here. All right, if you like these lined buttons, then you can add that. If you want different size of buttons, like a large button, small button, you can also do that. Okay, so another thing is important, which is card. So nowadays everything is becoming card centric. So they have also defined even UI for card. You just add this class name to any div called card. Then there is a card body option. Then there is a card top option. So if you want to add a product image or anything like that, you can add it here. Say you are building an e-commerce website. There you add the product image, and then you add the product's name here, some little bit description, then there is a add to cart link, something like that. So this makes our life so easy. Card. Then another thing is that, say I have taken an example of the image slider. Say if you have an image slider in your portfolio, okay, so that you can add easily. Okay, all you have to do is just copy these, you just simply copy this skeleton. So there is a copy link to instantly copy this whole thing. So you just paste in your UI, the default class is already given, just give the proper image link here in the src, your carousel is ready. It will not take more than 2-3 minutes, guys. Okay, so but everything is ready. And if you want to customize some behavior, say you are saying this arrows color is not something you are liking, if you want to change this color, you can also always you can customize or override this the default behavior. All right, okay. Then there is option called drop down. So drop down is a very commonly used component. Say you have a drop down like this. Say there is a profile link right on the right hand side. In the LinkedIn, you can see right here. This one is can see it's a drop down. So there are different options, right? So similarly here also drop down button is there. There also you can add, say there is a user menu, and here you want to add a logout link or a profile link or a change password link, something like that. So that you can add using drop downs. So so they have given the example, the skeleton for that, and the class names are already defined. You just copy this skeleton to your project, and your drop down button is ready. You just have to change the text and give the proper href content here. Okay, so another important part is modal. Okay, what is modal? Model is something that is something, say it is a dialogue. So if I would launch a model now, so you want to capture some information or you want to show some information, then the model becomes helpful. Okay, see, you will see the sign up page or sign in page sometime in some websites in model. Okay, so yes, not an alert of JavaScript. So you can see any content inside. So you can also show form inside a model. You can also show some information inside a model. Okay, so it depends on your implementation. All right, so just a minute. Is there any other thing I'm checking? Full screen model is also available if you want to show anything full screen. Okay, so that is there. Then after that, there is an option called navbar. So navbar, what is that? So you see similarly how we have a navbar on top of LinkedIn. So there is a home option, my network, jobs, messaging, notifications. Similar thing you can do using these navbar components. So you can add just simply just copy this part and change the links and text here, and your navbar is ready for website. Okay. So even these all of these navbars are mobile compatible. So it will work on mobile devices as well. Okay. Then there is a thing called tabs. Okay, so just a minute. Yes, tabs. No, the example is not given. I will show another example. Okay, so if there is any page, if there is any pagination, so there is a UI for that one also. This sometimes it also becomes handy. So if you have a long list, say you have items in one table, you want to show say 1000 elements, 1000 results. So that is not possible to load that those 1000 results every time people visit those page. In that time we need pagination. We have to paginate the results, and we have to show that. Okay, so for that this kind of UI becomes helpful. So if the page number comes here, or which page number you move, so on click of this page number, the request would will be served accordingly. Okay, now if you have a progress bar on your website, so there is a nice progress bar is given here. Okay, and then if you have a loading screen, so loaders are given here. Okay, then what are the other utilities available? Okay, nothing. Any other helpers? Okay, so you understood, right? So there are a lot of content that is already available, and the beautiful thing is that there are some free themes which are already available in their website. Okay, you can go and check out those themes. So there are some free and the paid one as well, which is available, and you can use those themes in your project. Say if you are building a project on in for any landing page or anything like that, you can check those themes and you can download and use. Okay, this is the paid one, but the free ones are also available. You can download and use those things. All right, so who is excited to try Bootstrap? And Bootstrap also comes with icons. So there are a hell lot of icons which you can use in your project. Say you are building a dashboard or anything like that, so you can use those things. Okay, so that is it. Let me go to my presentation. Yes. So I've given a brief introduction of Bootstrap. So inside Bootstrap, whatever I have mentioned, grids is something. Bootstrap grids are already built on top of Flexbox. Flexbox is something which, okay, I will talk about Flexbox in another day. Okay, and what are containers? Containers are something inside which you will keep all of your website content. So what container does is that it adds a different level of padding on the left and right hand side depending on the device width. So if you are on a wide or say if you are on a full HD monitor or in a 4K monitor, and if your website's content is not optimized for that, so container, what container does, it squeezes those UIs and keeps this UI in center and leave blank spaces on two sides. Okay, so it contains the padding aligns your content within a given viewport. That is a definition is given here. And breakpoints is something which I've not talked about. Breakpoints is a customizable widths that determine when or which content would how a content would behave if the small size if the screen size reduces or increases. Okay, So like whatever example that I have given in that grid, so there is this breakpoints like XS, SM, MD, LG. Those are breakpoints. So means at after which point how that UI would look. Okay, so breakpoints are defined here. Okay, and what are the content? Okay, these things are what I've already talked about. So typography is something, means how your texts will look like in your web page. So tables, I have given example. Similarly for images, there are some specific classes in Bootstrap which you can use to add the responsive behavior to the images. So images also one important point. Say whenever you will work on responsive design, so normally images don't squeeze. Okay, so they stays on their normal form or the normal width. So for that, Bootstrap have already defined some beautiful or some helpful class names which you can use. The image is also responsive. Then forms is something which becomes handy whenever we work on taking the user inputs. Okay, so then there are some most used components which I have listed here, like accordion, button, cards, drop downs, and then modal, nav bar, progress bar, tooltips, etc. Okay. So anyone has any question regarding Bootstrap? Okay, you can let me know on the chat. Then I'm moving forward. Okay, so next thing is that material design. So material design is anyone heard about material design? Okay, Anish has asked one question. Sir, is it a good to use Bootstrap every time because we are using predefined then? This basically means there is less use of generic CSS. So we might skip the topics. We would not take the effect of knowledge. Okay, so Anish, to answer this question, so you have to go through the default or you have to go through the course where I have said how you will learn about CSS. Okay, so that part is important because you have to learn about CSS and what are the properties that every element have and what you can change, how to change. So those things you have to know. Otherwise, what will happen, even if you apply Bootstrap in your project, if some customization is required, you would not be able to do that. Okay, so Bootstrap is helpful. So whenever you are going in some large application where there are a lot of CSS to write and you do not have time to write those CSS manually. So in those cases, Bootstrap is very helpful. Okay, so so material design is something. Uh, okay, so who came up with this idea? Means it is whose idea to have a material design in applications? Anyone knows who bought the idea of material design first? Okay, so Google first came up with the idea of material design. Okay, so I think if you have anyone has seen any Android device, so have you used Android KitKat? Means 4 point and the version 4 and above means the older versions. Yes. Anyone used KitKat? Android KitKat? So they would know the UI looked way different than what we are looking right now today, right? So whatever we see, say the elements, say on the settings page or the dialer page or whatever, the app drawer or anything like that, it looks way different than when it changed. Everything changed when Android 5 got released. With Android 5 means actually after KitKat, it was Lollipop. If I am, yes. So KitKat Lollipop, yes, KL, something like that. Okay. So Google came up with the material design, the concept of material design. So everything became so nicer. Means there is I think that is one of the major change that happened in Android. Means in their whole ecosystem or whole journey. That was a major difference in UI that time I have experienced. Okay, so then Google came up with the idea of material design. So what is material design? So let me take you to the web page. Okay, so the website is called material.io. Okay, this is their website, and there you will be able to understand what are their what you can say, the core principles behind the material. Okay, so they are saying material is a metaphor. Okay, so how a component should look like, how it should behave. Okay, so they are saying the material is something, say it is a piece of paper, and if you put a light on another one side of that paper, and how the shadows will reflect on the other side, this is how they have visualized material. Okay, so in material design you will see there is a shadow on the on another side. Okay, there is no shadow on LinkedIn, maybe because it is now it is a property of Microsoft. Okay, but if I would go to any Google website, say, so for this button only, there is a shadow, right? That means, say they are putting on light source from this top left angle, and the shadows are coming on the bottom right section. That means this is a material, this is something, this looks like this thing is elevated from the screen. Okay, that's why the shadow is coming. So that is how they have defined this material design. So there is a whole lot of thing that you can go and check their website, material.io/design. So I'm sharing the link on the chat. Okay, so you can go to their website, you can read their principles and their what are their conventions that they follow. Okay, and what if you are following material design, then what you should do. Okay, so yes, so material design is a design system. It is a design system created by Google. So again, I'm telling, it is not a library or anything like that. It is a design system. It just tells us how to design components in web. Okay, so it nowadays it is used in Android, of course. It is also used in iOS. It is also used in Flutter, and of course the web. So there are a lot of popular libraries already available, like a materialized CSS, like the material UI that is available on React, and other for other different languages also. There are different material design libraries are available. Okay, so as I have said, that material design is inspired by the physical world and its textures. Means how they would reflect light and cast the shadows on another side. How imagine the material surfaces, how the light shadow will work. So that is how material design works. Okay, so there are a few principles of material design I have listed here. Like, it should be predictable, it should be consistent. Means whatever UI layout you are designing, that should be consistent through, means the grids, the paddings and everything. It should be consistent in different screens as well. Okay, and the last thing, it has to be responsive. So the whatever layout you do, that has to fit in all kind of devices. Okay, so that is why it is important, because nowadays if you are building any website, and if you want it to rank well in Google search, so Google checks this criteria, means whether the website is mobile ready or not. Okay, if it is not mobile ready, they would downgrade those website in their search result. So this is a very important point, that you follow this responsive design principle, whatever I have mentioned earlier. Okay, and what should be their color system. So in material design, there are two things. There are two things that is important. One is a primary color and is a secondary color. So those two things you have to select for your application. Say you for the Flipkart brand. So what are the two different colors? So there is a one color called blue, you can see, and their logo is in the yellow color. So those are two colors those they normally use in different screens. Okay, so normally they don't use red color, pink color, magenta, yellow, green, orange. They would not use that. They will try to stick to those two colors only. Say for Facebook, so their primary color is blue. So everything is there is in blue. Okay. So similarly for Twitter, their primary color is the lighter shade of blue, and the secondary one is their darker shade of blue. Same thing goes for YouTube. So their primary color is red, and their secondary color is gray. Okay, so for like that, for your application, depending on your branding, depending on the application that you are building, how it would look like. So you should have only two colors, not more than that. That is something material design is telling nowadays. Okay. So what are the different libraries that are available? The first one, what I have already said, that is materialized CSS. This is the CSS library which you can use as an alternative of Bootstrap. So you can use Bootstrap or you can use this materialized CSS. And if you are working on in a React application, then this is the, I think, most used UI library nowadays in React, that is a materialui.com. So they have all kind of component that is available here. Okay. So now today, any question regarding material design you can ask. Otherwise, I will start with, yes, for Geogo it is green, of course. So I will start with REST API. So anyone has any idea about REST API? Any previous knowledge or anything like that? So there is a lot that I will talk about about API. So this is one of my favorite part. Okay, in this, so this is something I have created this content for another training. So I'm just sharing that part with you. Okay. So what is API in simple terms? Anyone knows? So if you do not know, am I muted, guys? Am I loud and clear, or is the audio is not that great? Is it LNC? Yes. Okay. My internet connection is also stable. All right. So what is API in simple terms? I'm saying it is about connecting dots. Okay. So say you have a web server running in some distant location. Say you are accessing your Facebook profile. Say the server is is present on US. Okay. And the same data, the data is stored there, and you can access that data in your mobile phone, or you can access the data in your laptop or desktop from where you are connecting, right? So you can access that same data in different places. Okay, then how this, of course the internet connection is already there. Without internet, those things that would not be possible. But how your web browser or the mobile application is communicating with that server and getting the data out of it and showing you results. Okay, that means your data is present at one location. You are accessing that data in your smartwatch, in your smartphone, in your smart TV, in your laptop, smartphone, everything. Okay, that means you are connecting those dots. Somehow you are connecting those dots. Somehow those data, whatever you are seeing on your mobile phone, the same thing you are viewing on the laptop, on your desktop. That means something is happening which is connecting these application, different devices together. It doesn't matter where those devices are, those things are already connected. How that is connected? It is using API. Okay, so API is connecting all different dots. Let me take another example. API allows us to order our favorite food from Zomato or Swiggy. It allows us to make hotel reservations or flight bookings. All right, so how that works? Okay, before going to that, let me take let me say the full form. The full form is application programming interface. Okay, so, or in a short form, you can say it is an API. And if you go by textbook definition, it is a very complex one, not a complex one. It is another, say, is API is a connection between the computers and between computer programs. It is a type of software interface and blah blah blah. So there is a long description, that is, I have taken this description from Wikipedia. Okay, if you are not getting this thing, then I have a clear-cut simple example for all of you. Say this is your mobile phone, this is the server, and you want the data from the server, right? You want the data, you want that Facebook feed, the likes count and everything. The comments, how many comments and likes you are getting on your photo, or on Insta, how many love you are getting. So that you want, that information you want from the server, right? So that means you are requesting server, you just pull that screen option, like you pull the screen down to refresh. So once the server receives that request, it, after processing the request, it sends back the response. Okay, so let me take another familiar example. Say you are visiting a restaurant, right? So there is a nice looking table. So you entered, you are sitting on the table, and there is a menu card, right? And there is a very clean kitchen, and the staffs are already there. The kitchen staff, they're there, they are ready to cook the food. Okay, so now you are ready to eat, and the kitchen is ready to cook. So how you will communicate with the kitchen? Tell me. Very simple question. How you will communicate with the kitchen? Yes, you'd call a waiter, right? So waiter would come to you, the waiter would come to you, and they would show you the menu card, and they ask, so which food item you would like to order. They would take your message, so they would note down those things, the delicious dishes that you want to eat, and they will take that order, they would take that note to the kitchen. The kitchen, after reviewing that order, they would prepare the food, and the waiter would deliver. Okay, so you are getting my point, right? So this waiter is acting as an API. It is communicating between devices. Now let's replace this whole thing. Say this table and chair is your mobile phone, and this kitchen is the server. This mobile phone and server is communicating through this waiter called API. Now let's assume another real world application. Okay, so let's go and book a flight. So we'll book a flight to somewhere, Delhi. So I would go to, say, Indigo. So Indigo. Okay, so we will book one flight. So from CCU, say arrival city is Bengaluru, BLR. Okay, so for one passenger, for tomorrow's flight, let's see. Okay, so Pratham is saying how we would implement it. Confused. So don't get confused. This is the starting point. Just first you have to understand the concept, then only you will be able to implement. Okay, so whenever I have learned the driving, so my instructor told me one important lesson. Okay, so during turning, so you have to take turn, right? Left turn, right turn. Okay, so normally whenever you are starting the driving classes, then you would go fast. So you would like to hit the accelerator hard and go fast. So there they have given one lesson that during turning or anywhere, first you have to control, you have to make your car stable, means you are on the line, so there is no one on your way, then only you can accelerate. So similar thing goes here. So first you have to adjust the balance. Okay, first you have to control, then you can accelerate. So implementation is the acceleration. First you have to control, first you have to understand, right? So okay, so let me zoom out this thing a bit. Yes, I think it is zoomed in too much. So there are a lot of flight prices that they are giving. Okay, so now how they are doing that? They have access to their database, right? They have access to their database. So Indigo is maintaining their set of database where they have the availability of the flights. Okay, so here in the Indigo side, you are not seeing the flights for the SpiceJet, or flights for the Go Air, or flights for the, what are they, Vistara, Air India, nothing, right? You are just checking the prices, the fares for the Indigo Airlines. So now you would say, sir, the fare price is available in their database, and they are showing, they are just pulling the data, and they are just showing us here. So where is the role of API? So do you have the same question? Where is the role of API? They're just taking the data from their database and they're just showing us here. What is the role of API? How that API plays, how API becomes important? What is their importance here? Do you have that question in mind, guys? That means, okay, so for this moment, let's assume Indigo has access to their database and there is no API that they have written. They are simply accessing the data from the database and they are showing us here. Okay, so now let's take another example. Let's go to Google Flights. Same trip we would do CCU to BLR. Yes. No, I would want to have a one-way trip on the 1st of December. All right. So in the Google Flights, you can see there are data from AirAsia, there are data from Indigo, Go Air, SpiceJet. Now I'm seeing that if I would choose the AirAsia one, then the fare is less. Okay, so if I would have chosen these Indigo Airlines, then I have spent more money, right? So from here, I can decide which airline. So here now I would decide, say I would go with AirAsia. I would not take this Indigo flight. Now you tell me, does Google have access to their database? In case of Indigo, we have said that they have access to the database and they can show the result. Now you don't tell me that they have given access to the Google. Yes, Google do not have access to the database. Neither for the AirAsia nor for the Indigo. Same thing applies for the Go Air, SpiceJet. Okay, so that means they do not have access. That means how Google is taking the data. Not only Google, if you go to Make My Trip, if you go to yatra.com, okay, so everyone would show you flights from multiple airlines. Do you think that Indigo and these airlines companies like Indigo, Go Air, SpiceJet, they have given their database access to these vendors to Make My Trip, Yatra, Google Flight? No, right? That means their API is available. That means they have exposed some sort of information, so that these services can be accessed from third-party applications. That means these APIs can be consumed from websites like Google, Make My Trip, or Yatra. Okay. So Vineet is saying there is a public API. So I would not say it is a public, it is some sort of protected API. So there are different types of API authentication mechanisms, which I will talk about later. So that is not something which I would discuss today. Okay. So there are different authorization schemes which they follow to obtain the data. Means if you go to Indigo's website, so there is nothing open API that is available. Okay. First, you have to request Indigo, and they only give APIs to some verified big companies. Okay, so that is it. Okay, so I have given the flight booking example. Is it clear, guys? So they would access those data through the APIs. That means Google, they access the data using API. So is it clear now? Okay, so let's take another example. We will take a case study of CoWIN. So now we know that for the past 2 years we have this pandemic called COVID-19, and everybody wants the vaccine. So are you vaccinated, guys? Have you took your 2 doses of vaccine? Okay, great. Now let's take the example of this case study. Okay, let's understand the case study. So now, to get the vaccine, where you would go? You would go to hospitals, right? Or the health centers, right? So now say there is no such system available and the vaccine is only available at the health center or the hospitals, and there are no such system, means anybody can come any day. That means say next day, say if government announces the vaccine is available, I think in the April 2021 they have announced that vaccine is available for all 18+ people. Now you imagine if all those 1 billion people they stand in a queue on these hospitals, then what will happen? A total chaos, right? So for that people will get angry if they do not get vaccine. Anyway, people are angry because there's some you not get vaccine in time. Okay, so the solution is the co-win portal, right? So what co-win does, co-win allows us to register for the vaccine. We can check the availability, we can book a slot, we can download the certificate, right? We can do it for our family members, right? Now now let's, you can ask the question, sir, if co-win is there and they can do all of the stuff, then what is the role of API? Why I'm taking the example of co-win now? Now, what co-win did is say, if those people comes to, so if I think you have already experienced, I have experienced myself to book my first vaccine. So I have tried, I think, I don't know, 100 plus times. Okay, so vaccine is notification is coming and is getting vanished within seconds. So now what happens? And when on the 1st of April, when the government has announced that vaccination would be available, and the facts, these co-win website was crashing very instantly. So what clever thing did co-win? Co-win did that time, they have exposed some of their data as public APIs. So through the public API, you will be able to check the vaccine availability. Okay, you will be able to download certificate, you will be get alerts. All right. So I have registered in, I think, Paytm, I think registered for the vaccination alert. So whenever the vaccine doses get uploaded, I used to get alert that time. Okay. After that, few other websites like the under 45 or the above 45, something like that, those websites came into picture and they have consumed these APIs. So what happened? So once people comes to know about that, that means that not only co-win has the information, Paytm has also same information. The under 90 under 45.in has also has same information. Not only that, we will also get WhatsApp alert or the Telegram alert from there. So that means the traffic got divided instantly, right? That means co-win solved one problem, one major problem regarding the initial traffic that people are coming to check the availability. So now the availability can be checked on other websites as well. That is the role of API here. Understood, guys? Yes. So now you can see co-win public APIs are a blessing. Lot of solutions people have developed regarding around co-win, and they have managed to derive, I mean, separate the traffic from co-win to those third-party API applications. All right. And there are some protected APIs as well, where you can book a slot, reschedule appointment, you can record the vaccination as well. So for the health center, they used to use these APIs to record a vaccination or something like that. Okay. So now why I'm telling another story. Take, say, for if you are accessing co-win from the web page, you are requesting https://cowin.com.in and the server is responding with HTML page. Now another aspect you understand. Now say with this HTML, not only HTML, this means these images are also going, CSS file is also downloading, JavaScript files are also downloading. I have checked for every page load. So co-win server is responding with 3 MB of data. That means the server has to serve all the images, all the CSS file, all the JavaScript file, and the large HTML as well. So whole data consumes 3 MB of data. Okay, the whole page. And if you visit other different pages, that means the different data, same means the server has to serve those data as well. Now what clever thing co-win did is, co-win exposed their API, which is available at api.cowin.gov.in. Right? And the third-party applications, they are calling that API and they are getting JSON in response. So now the response size of this JSON is less than 1 KB, or in some cases it is less than 5 KB. So now you compare these two things. Their co-win was serving 3 MB per request. Here co-win is serving only 5 KB per request. Now you can imagine the difference, the load that CoWin has reduced from their shoulder. All right. So understood the benefit of API. API is the savior here in this case. Right? Understood. So are you interested to build your first API? Yes. So now let's start with JSON. So anyone heard about JSON earlier? OpenWeather API also has same. Yes, OpenWeather API also have same API. So your next assignment will be around that thing only. Okay. So now let's talk about JSON. So how those server response means how that response format looks like. What in what format does the server, does the CoWin server, or does the OpenWeather server, or does the Facebook, Twitter, Google server respond, or the Indigo server respond? Using a common, I would say it's a common format or a contract in syntax of API, or in means context of API. It is called JSON. JSON is JavaScript object notation. It was developed in 2000 and later it was standardized in year 2013. Okay. So now let's understand how REST came into picture. What is REST? Okay. So I have said RESTful API or REST API. Now let's understand. So we have understood API. API is something that means the client and server is communicating somehow. Okay. So now understand what is REST. Let's take an example of this code. So there is a function called hello world. So this function is written in JavaScript. Okay. So there is a function called hello world and there is a return statement. This is simply returning a string. And here you are calling the function, you are printing the output on the log console. Okay. So what is happening here? That means from here you are calling the function. Okay. And in your computer, what is happening? So say this line, this x is equal to hello world is this thing. And this blue box is your piece of code that is written. That means you're calling this function from here to there, and the function is responding with this string. Okay. So the whole thing is happening in your local system. Let's assume the whole thing is happening inside your local system. This is called a local procedure calls. Means you have written a piece of function and say you have created one class. Okay. And here you are creating an object of that class. So those two pieces are there on the same system and they are interacting with each other. That is called a local procedure calls. Now, what is remote procedure call? So when that piece of code, say hello world, is present on the server in one machine, and you are calling that function from another machine, say x is equal to hello world, and if that function is responding back, okay, that means these two things, these two are from made request and response is made from two different computers. It is called remote procedure call. Means you are making a remote request. Okay. So what is REST API? What is REST API? I am saying this API is a RPC mechanism. Okay. An API is a RPC mechanism. RPC means a remote procedure call. That means the data is available on the CoWin server or data is available on the Indigo server. And I am accessing the data from Paytm in case of CoWin. And I am accessing the data from Google website or from the Make My Trip or Yatra. That means I am making a remote procedure calls. So API is a RPC mechanism, is a remote procedure call mechanism. Okay. And what is RESTful API? So REST stands for representational state transfer. This is not only a full form. So I would explain why it is called a representational state transfer. So I would not go into history. I would skip this part. I would skip this part as well. Okay. So why REST? Why REST came into picture? Because it comes with some set of design principles that it comes with some sort of principles. Say we should have this specific response format, or we should respond in this way. We should do error handling in that way. We should secure our API in such way. Okay. So there are certain principles which is already defined in REST. Okay. So there are some sort of certain best practices as well, which is available. and it is compatible with any data format. In RESTful API, we can normally by default we nowadays we respond with JSON, but you can also respond with XML, or it can be anything. Okay, it is simple and flexible, and it uses JSON by default, and JSON is created for human consumption. So how a JSON looks like? So let me take another example here. So this is how a JSON file looks like. Okay, so it is normally, this one is an array. Inside that there are a lot of objects. Okay, you can easily read the data. Means normally servers, they communicate using this kind of data format. So here the data is present in a key value pair. So inside array there are objects, multiple objects present. Okay, so it looks like that. So what makes an API RESTful? So we will understand this part. So now let's say we have a cars database. So inside the database, we have one table for cars. So inside that car, we have different columns. Say for one is for VIN number, VIN for vehicle identification number. Make means which company's car it is, and what is the model, what is the launch year, who is the owner. Okay. Now let's assume the data for the car is stored in a database, right? Similarly, we have different other cars. Say here is a Tiago, here is Altroz, and the VIN number is different. Here the make model is different. Okay. So now let's assume, say this data is present on the database, and now say you have a Tiago, and tomorrow you sell the Tiago. So what data will change in the database? So for this Tiago, which data would change? Tell me on the chat. For this Tiago, which data will change? Owner, right? The owner name would change, because the owner name would change, right? So now the kind of information for every entity we have on the database is its representational state. So for REST, I have said representational state transfer. So now the kind of data we have, which is uniquely identifying one entity, is called its representational state. So this data is the representational state of this car. This data is the representational state of this car. Okay. So now if you want to access the data from another third-party system, say from this system, I'm requesting, say, give me data of VIN number 123 from the database. Okay. And if I'm trying to access the data, and when that data gets transferred from this computer, means from this computer and the server, that means our representational state is transferring from one state to another, and one system to another, one device to another. That means our representational state is transferring. That is what it is called, representational state transfer. Okay. So what are the data formats? So the representational state can be presented in HTML. So normally HTML we show on the web browser, and we can also show the same information in JSON, XML, or in CSV. Okay. And in case of RESTful API, we use these default formats. So normally for RESTful API, we do not use HTML. We use normally JSON and XML. Okay. So what is the communication protocol? So by default, HTTP is used in case of these RESTful APIs. So it is called HTTP REST API. Okay. So this one also is important thing. So in some developers think our API has a support for JSON. That means our API is a RESTful API. So that is actually not true. What makes an API architecture RESTful? There are 6 design rules. Okay. So first, there should be a client server. I said that API is a remote procedure call. That means there should be a server, there should be a client. Second, there should be a uniform interface, means how the client will communicate with the data, whether it is it can be mobile device, it can be a smartwatch. How that device would communicate with the server, there should be a uniform interface. Third thing is there should be a statelessness. Statelessness means the server should not maintain, means the client should not, server should not maintain the state of the client. State means the station or anything like that, login or session related information. There should be caching behavior, there should be layering and code on demand. These are some advanced topic. I would not go in detail for these things. Okay. So I have just given a brief introduction of API. Let me go back to my presentation once again. Yes. Okay. So whenever you will design your RESTful API, remember these things. Your RESTful API endpoint should be noun, and rule 2, it should be plural. Like say, I have shown you one example. So here I have a list of products. Okay. So my URL is API/v1/products. So this thing is in noun. So product is a noun and it is in plural. So your API endpoint should be in noun. It should be plural. Okay. Same thing goes for the another rule is that you should use proper HTTP method for every operation. So there are normally 4 type of operation that we perform on our data. Say we have a that card data that I have given, that card win number example that I have given. There are 4 type of operation that we can perform with the data. Like we can create a new card, we can retrieve the information about the card, we can update any details like a owner information we can update, or we can delete those information. Okay, so there are 4 type of operation that by default we would do. That is a create, read, update, delete. In short, it calls CRUD operations. And there are different HTTP formats for that. Like create should be done in post, retrieve should be done in get, update should be done in put, delete should be done in delete format. Okay, so this is all about today's uh, input, that whatever is the basics about API. So in detail I will explain how we can create one API, your first API. But before that, I will ask all of you to complete that JavaScript part on your course that you have purchased. Okay, and you try to consume one API. Say I would give an assignment, say for the weather API. So I will give in the next session, I will talk about that. Okay, so for this week, yes, suggest some tutorials on Postman and RESTful API. Yes, of course, I would share the details. Okay, so for this week, what you can do is that you can learn, you learn and use Bootstrap in your project. Learn about Material UI framework. If it is possible, then you can try the Materialize CSS. Learn more about the REST API. Okay, REST API naming convention, HTTP codes, what are the request and response format should be. Okay, download Postman. Postman is a tool which you can use to consume APIs, to check API responses. Okay, download it now. So and from now onwards, you will use it more often, because you are going to consume more and more APIs. Okay, so stay prepared for the weekend assignment and the assessment test. So the assignment would be you will have to create a weather widget or the weather page. So I will share the design for that. So for every group, the design would be different, and you design that UI using Bootstrap or Material UI. And then later I will teach you how we can integrate Open Weather Map API with that UI, and from that UI only you'll be able to search with city and you'll get the weather info for the city. Okay, which is better, Bootstrap or CSS? Bootstrap is something, there are tons of CSS already written there. So Bootstrap is a framework which is built on top of CSS. So, okay. So anyone has any question, guys? Sure. I will share the recording. Okay. So this is the due for the last 2 session. Which is better, React and Bootstrap? React is something which is way different. React is something, you are adding a brain to your front end. Okay. Bootstrap is just, you can say it is just a skin, a smart skin. Okay, so Subranil, I will share the details soon on the chat, on the Discord channel. Stick there. All right, so anyone has any question, then please drop that question on the Discord chat. So I will talk about that. What is Postman? Postman is a client. Say if you want to access any API, if you are trying any API, then Postman is a client where you can try those APIs. Okay, so that is it, guys. How was the session? Rate in between 1 to 5. 1 for bad, 5 for good. Okay. Okay, great. Thank you everyone for joining the session. So I will meet you on the next Monday.